Okay, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this week's topic, which is selling. And then next week, we're going to dive into networking and all of that jazz. So, sharing my screen. And this was the PowerPoint brain that I went through that first week. So, when we are talking about selling your offer, what happens is a lot of times, if you've been in other coaching programs, for me, I had never sold anything before, but many people like to go a route of having a sales script or a sales, like just a layout for your sales calls. And I think that's awesome. And I zhuzh it up a little, make it a little different. And I think I've spoke with all of you about this on your one-on-one calls about how to sell your offer and how to differentiate yourself in this regard. So we're going to talk about what a sales funnel will look like. And this encompasses some of the things you've learned in your marketing video. And we're going to talk about how to have a very clear purchase process, going into a little bit of belief work as well, also about how to have a link tree and QR code. Those links will be coming in the future, but it's just helpful when you are building your business. And then a sales process. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys is about a little bit of thought work. One of the things that I realized is that a lot of us get stuck. And I, like, literally myself this morning, I was feeling a little imposter syndrome. And it's like, oh, who am I to be offering this service? Who am I to be helping people in this way? And that's going to happen to all of us. When that happens, especially if you have done something like changing your offer, increasing your price, changing the duration, all of those things, any change to your business at all, is going to require your brain to get on board with that. That's why we use the belief triad. This is where you are going to create more belief for yourself. Like, this is the best offer. This is best for my customers. This is best for me and my business. And you want to be building yourself, your belief in yourself, in your customer, and in your offer. Because as we talked about in the first session, your thoughts create your results, and it's really important that your brain is on board. So within this, we are talking about marketing, and I actually changed the dates of these. So we actually talked about this already when we were talking about cold, warm, and hot leads. We have focused on, like, okay, growing your audience. We're going to focus a little bit more on that next week. We also we're going to talk about really the warming up. That's going to be the focus of next week with the nurturing process that I have you go through. And then hot is what we're going to focus on today. This is where we're going to be like, okay, we are compelling these people to take action, to work with us. We know we can help them, and we want to make sure it's a clean and streamlined process. So if you don't already have this, if you are a service-based business, some people like Vindia, you might not have this if you're watching this back, because people might not need to book a call with you. But what I would recommend is having something like Calendly or Acuity. And it's just an integration with your Google Calendar, and it includes the times that you're available. So if people want to book a consult call with you, instead of you being like, what times are you available? You can just be like, sign up using this link, which is very helpful. The next thing, and this is like the old way that mine used to look, is a link tree. If you guys don't have it, it's free, it's awesome. And I would highly recommend using this link tree. It's a free website where you can put the name of your program. You can include a link to book a consult. You can have your Instagram. If you're doing any promotions or presentations, you want to create that so that people have a simple place to go to and can see all of your links. Now, what I realized is that I wanted to have a QR code if I was ever doing a presentation for people, if I was doing on my business cards or things like that. And I didn't want to have to change the QR code every single time that I did a presentation or something like that. So what I did is I put the Linktree's link into the QR code. You don't have to change the QR code ever if you've got this Linktree. The Linktree will update it automatically, and it'll be super, super quick and easy to do. Business cards are 100% optional. Doing packaging, presentations, anything like that, all of these things are things that we are going to cover in the future. But if you want to get a little ahead of the game, go ahead and create that link tree and QR code now. And it's just a way that you can get information about your business out really quickly without having to send people links every single time. It's like, oh, this is updated, because your consult call links might change, your pricing might change, your website might change. All those things are up for grabs. We want it to be a little bit more fluid. So when you are doing a sales call with people, this is where you are going to be, I like to call them consults. You can call them discovery calls, whatever you wish. I would say that you would want to avoid calling it a free coaching call. When you are doing a consult call or you're doing a discovery call, you want to make sure that the person on the other side of the computer is ready to make a decision and pay. If you're like, oh, it's a free coaching call, they come in and they're just like sharing about their life and there's like being super vulnerable, which is great, but they don't have the expectation to buy. And if you're like, oh, and by the way, you should totally work with me and tell me about the reasons why you want to work with me, it's like, they're like, wait, I thought this was just a free call. So I would highly recommend not calling it a free coaching call. Again, it's always up to you. And I would recommend for the first many of your sales calls, taking your sweet time. Yes, 3 hours isn't it's an exorbitant amount of time. You might not have that, and that's okay. However, when I first started, I was doing coaching for kids, and I really wanted to make sure that like I upped my conversion rate. I wanted to make sure that I was selling, like if I put the effort in on the beginning, then I would see the return on the time investment on the end. And what I found is that by taking an hour beforehand to really prep, and I'll show you what you're going to do for that, taking a full hour for the call and then an hour to do the evaluation after, drastically changed my conversion rate. I was able to see where I messed up. I was able to really prep myself, and I could tell when I didn't do the pre-work and when I did. It was a very drastic difference in the way I was showing up for the consult call. So again, you don't have to take a full hour, totally my recommendation, but this is something that also, if you don't have consults, I want you to do this worksheet. If you don't have any consults on the books, I want you to go through it at least once so you can get a feel for what it's like to do this before a consult. And if we are talking at the beginning about your belief work, this is a great way to build your belief. You'll be able to think about a person that you might want to work with, even if it's not a booked consult currently. Then you're going to think about like why you ranked it this number. If it wasn't a 10, what would you need to believe to make it a 10? And this is essentially, what are all your limiting beliefs? What are your intentional empowering beliefs? So that it's like, okay, 1 to 10, what's holding you back? What would it take to be more empowering and get you to a 10? Same with confident, for capacity for humans to change. Why did you rank it that number? If it wasn't a 10, what would you need to make it a 10? And number 10 through 12 is like very, very important. This is where the biggest part of your belief work will come in. I want you to list a time that you or a client overcame something that you were like, this is crazy. We all got started with these businesses because we knew that we found something that we were able to help people with, and we made it work. That's what you're going to do here. You're going to think about something that was impossible that you overcame, why you maybe got started building your business, exactly what you're doing. If you have clients, think about the crazy things they've gone through, then you can add to that. And then I want you to like list any free people, any people that you've peer coached, the Uber driver. Like I had a client doing that on Monday. We were talking about how like she coached her Uber driver, she coached her sister, she coached her brother-in-law, she coached her niece. Like all those people, even if it's very informal, count as a person that you've made an impact on their life. The reason why this is important is you want to develop the self-concept of I am a person who creates insane breakthroughs, results, and changes in other people's life. Because then it's going to be so much easier to sell people. You're like, oh my gosh, I could totally help you. And then you're going to list your own changes, feel all that power. And then also you're going to release your attachment to the client and just show up and serve. So it's like when you're thinking about a consult, the goal is not to have a 100% conversion rate ever. there are going to be people that your business is not a good fit for, or you won't be a good fit for either. You do not want to have 100% conversion. However, you do want to make sure you get really clear about what they need. If you are super attached to them and you're like, oh my God, I don't have enough money. How am I going to pay for this? I don't have enough time for this. What's going to happen is that it's going to feed into their experience. And when you're doing something as personal as a consult, you want to make sure that you are really showing up for them. This person might have never had any exposure to coaching or whatever your business is before this moment. We want to make sure that we leave a really positive, lasting impression. And at the beginning, taking a full hour can help. Now, when you're doing a sales call, what you want to do is you want to take your clients through a similar process. You want to think about where they are now and where they want to go. And then we'll talk about how you're going to get them from where they are now and where they want to go. And then why it's important for their problem to be solved. So you can do, most humans who I've ever met, and I've done like 7 different programs and learned about how to do consults, most of them do not have a chart. None of them have the sales call. They just really are talking through things. What I found is when I did this, which is awesome, and most people do it. So if you don't have a sales call process that's like mine, that's totally fine. But I found is that it was really vague and it didn't have the specificity that my program had. So when I created the guide with my PSPR, what happened is I realized like, oh, if I am using these topics for my marketing, if I'm using these topics while I deliver to my clients, I should absolutely use them while I'm selling. And then there's going to be a consistent, cohesive experience for the users. So you want to make sure that you are using these topics when you're selling people. So I was thinking about when I was doing a consult with people, instead of just being like, where are you now? Where do you want to go? It was like, okay, specifically, I know I can help you with burnout. What's going to help you with burnout? And this literally took my conversion rate. It was like 40% to like 70% just by doing this. So it's like, this is a very crucial part about how to up your conversion rate if that's something you're looking for. So for me, I would be like, okay, I know I can help you with burnout. Tell me where you are right now. And they were like, oh, I'm feeling constantly stressed. And then I was like, okay, where do you want to be after my program? My program was initially 10 months, and then I switched it to 6. So when I was thinking about burnout, they were like, they might not have said they want to solve the root cause of stress, but they were like, oh, I just want to be less stressed. Do not sell people the moon is the biggest thing. Like I've seen and heard a lot of people be like, you'll never feel stress ever again. You're never going to feel any negative emotion if you work with me. When that happens, people start to lose trust and faith in you, because even if it is something that you feel like you can guarantee for them, we want to make it very realistic and cautioning on the side of like, don't, like, it's like almost like minimal realistic, like making it like the most like, I can for sure make you feel a little less stressed. You'll know how to solve for stress. So what I did is I was like, okay, so when we're thinking about where you are now and where you want to go, I would have a person on the call and they would be like, oh, I'm feeling constantly stressed. And I'd be like, oh, where do you want to be in 10 months? I want to be less stressed. Great. The way that I'll teach you how to do that, I'll teach you how to manage your mind using something called an unintentional and intentional model. You're going to, and it's a tool that I use that will help you master your mindset. And I think it'll be really helpful for you to understand the root cause of why you're feeling stressed. And they're like, oh, that makes sense if I haven't been able to solve this before. And then we would go to the next category. So this was something that like a lot of people I think were confused about, like I've heard recently. So what I did is I would go through one category and then just put a regular bullet point as the plan. And I would say that that would be the piece that's the process. So that's where you're going to have the process piece for you. Then, and also honestly, y'all's words are so much better than mine. Like I've learned so much since then, and it's going to be like even easier for you. So I go through burnout, be like unintentional to intentional models. Okay, now tell me about time management. I would rank it at like a 4. Why would you rank it a 4? Because I'm feeling really overwhelmed at the tasks at work. Okay, where do you want to be? I want to feel like those tasks are organized and maybe even calendaring. I've seen that you did that in your marketing before. Great. What I would like for you to do is I'm going to teach you Monday hour 1. And that's a process that I use to take your to-do list and create a calendar based on that. How does that sound? Like, oh, that makes sense. Great. Then I'd be like, all right, awesome. Moving on to work-life balance. How are you feeling about work-life balance right now? Oh my gosh, I'm a 1. I am working constantly outside of work hours, and I want to just like stop working when the day's over. I just want to be able to turn it off. I was like, great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to set work boundaries. And that means that you're going to have a set time when you are working. And then when you are not working, we are going to clear your mind so you can have that time to yourself. Be like, great. And they're like, that's exactly what I need. All right, what about the long-term plan? I feel like for me, it's kind of like a 3. It's like I'm feeling okay about where I am right now, but I have no idea what I want my future to look like. And so for me, I was like, okay, where do you want to be? It's like, I just want to know what the future is going to look like. And they wouldn't have said that they want to create a foggy future vision. That was kind of like my thing. But I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the wheel of life where we're going to develop actually a foggy future vision of your 10-year plan. It's going to be really helpful for you to visualize the future, and then it'll ground you in the present. How does that sound? And then they were like, amazing. I was like, great. So based on the ranking that you told me, which by the way, I use these rankings when I'm coaching people as well. So it's helpful for you to just kind of like get a baseline for where you're at. I'm going to take these bullet points and I'm going to put them and customize them just for you. So since work-life balance was the category where you felt like you needed the most growth, we're going to start with setting work boundaries. And I would literally like copy and paste that up to the top. I'd be like, we're going to start with setting work boundaries because I want you to actually be able to enjoy your life outside of work. How does that sound with us starting with that? And they'd be like, great. And be like, okay, so after you've set up those work boundaries, this is where I'm doing the painting the vision. I'm like thinking about like where I want them to go. I want them to like picture themselves painting this life for themselves. And it's like, after working with me for 10 months, I do not want you to feel, I want you to know exactly why you're feeling stressed and have a tool and a strategy for any time that you feel stressed. I want to make sure that you have a system that can help you do that. And because of that, what I'm going to do is you're going to solve for that root cause of stress by the end of the 10 months. And I truly, you'll know how to enjoy your job. I'm not saying they're never going to be stressed, but you'll know what to do with that stress now instead of just wallowing in it. Does that make sense? And they'll be like, yes, that sounds great. Okay, now the next category was the long-term plan. This is where I really want you, once you've gotten the stress down, once you've got the boundaries set, I want to have you think to the future. Because when you are too stressed about the present, it's hard for you to envision anything else. So then I want you to take a minute and think about where you want to be 10 years from now. It's 2023 right now. I want you to think about where you want to be in 2033. What do you want your life to look like? I want to help you build that vision when we're working together so you can start to become that version of you today. Does that make sense? They're like, yes, that sounds great. And it's like, great. This is when you'll talk the most, is during this point. And then like last but not least, we're going to get you organized so you can start creating that awesome life for yourself. And I'm going to teach you how to calendar using Monday hour 1. Do you have any questions about that? And they'll be like, yes or no. And you can be like, great. I would love to work with, I feel like based on what you've told me, I think you are a great fit for my program. And I would love to invite you a spot to work with me. And they'll be like, awesome. And if they don't ask for how much it is, that's when you're like, the investment is X amount of dollars for 6 months. And then you get like, that's where you go. And they'll be like, oh. And usually there'll be like a pause and you'll be like, most people have never, ever taken this time to invest in themselves ever. If that's you, I remember I was there when I first started coaching, and I would love to just check in and see if you want, if you're if you would like to just like walk through why and why not, this would be a great decision for you. And by adding that, it makes it less awkward because then you're like, instead of just like forcing them to be like, that's a lot of money, you're like, most people have objections. Let's talk through them here. So it just makes it easier. And then there'll be a follow-up email and then a payment email that will come up. So that's how to go through the consult. Yes, Talia.
Sorry, Megan, I was noticing that in your marketing, you provide your pricing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit, or are you gonna get there?
I know. I actually wasn't. So I personally felt like when I was, it's totally personal preference. I decided to do that when I was fully booked and was starting my group so that people could have the pricing listed. And I felt like for me, when I hear about a coaching program I want to do, if I know how much it costs, I'm already sold when I come to the consult call. And it's like a lot more fun for me as the client and as the coach to like experience people being like, oh, I already know how much it is. I just want to talk about the specifics.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that, but I also was fully booked before I made that choice. So you could wait until you get a couple more clients. You could have it on listed on the Calendly link, or you can go for it and just be like, yeah, I'm the kind of person that lists my price. I would say after fully booked, I would recommend it. Before fully booked, it's up to you.
Okay.
That's my stance.
Thank you.
Of course. That's a good question. Maria.
I have like the way there's like two parts of this like sales call that I've been doing, or sorry, two parts that aren't here that I've been doing, and I just wanted to like get your thoughts on it. If you have any like thoughts about like why you have done that maybe in the past and or like why you don't do it anymore. And those two parts are like after basically um after you like kind of walk them through the plan,
Yeah.
before you get to the questions and decision making, there was like I'm doing this thing where I like paint the day in the life. Um and I remember, sorry, what? Did you
Oh, I
say
love
something?
that. I think that's
Oh,
great.
okay. And then after that, I there's like a there's like this piece of like the commitment. Like how committed are you to like go like doing it? Scale of like 1 to 10. Um and I was just curious if you've like heard of I think that comes from like the Stacey Bayman School of Thought, and I definitely like learned it from Jackie as well. And I was just curious if you like if there's like reasons why you don't do that anymore, or yeah, I'm just kind of wondering.
So I found that like there will be times when I do that. It'll be like, okay, like let's just like think about like it's like this is what I want to offer you. But I think that sometimes this is my personal experience. If it's working for you, continue to do it. Okay. But what I found is that like it felt kind of in my brain when I was like walking them through that, like picturing the vision for them and like painting the day in the life. I feel like they were like coming to Talia's point of like, okay, what's the price? Like, okay, I'm feeling good about this, but what do I like? I actually like in order to tell you how committed I am, I want to feel safe to like feel like I can invest in this. And so that's why I decided to kind of like it's like you want to build them. It's like I felt like I was building them up to like, and this is not always the case. I'm trying to use my words very carefully because I did not want to give you any unintentional thoughts, but I felt like I was like kind of like building them up and then they were like kind of like brought down to reality like with like a very forceful hand. That's why I think like creating like a very realistic vision without being like and things are going to be amazing and you're going to wake up and you're never going to smell bad things again. And it's like just like weird things that like I was like I've definitely like been there and I was like I felt like it was more of like just like a business call and I'm like I'm so excited for you to have this, but it wasn't like so excited like it's like the emotional range I just like took down a couple notches and I feel like people were like, oh, it's just a business decision, it's just a decision what you want to do for your life. we're gonna be friends either way. I'm so glad that you like were opened up to me about this stuff, but like it's you're gonna create an amazing life either way. I would just love to help you take it the next step.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
I find that one of my like biggest things that I'm been working on with sales calls is that they like I want more time to talk about objections. Like I'm getting to the price and stuff like what feels like at the very very end, and I don't like that either because I'm like trying to hit all these steps. Um, and I can feel that like thing too. I even find sometimes too, you like paint the vision and people are like, yeah, it sounds really good, but they're not there. Like they can be like so far from feeling like that is possible that it kind of feels like the when you see the marketing that's like and you're gonna like the overly like aspirational like shit that kind of like okay whatever like people I think numb out to it because they're like they know that it's like maybe not just like let's manifest like butterflies and shit.
Literally, and like that's where for me, I found that like even as a really excitable person, like I love like being excited for someone, like seeing their dream for them. But I found that like I had to like because I was like, oh my, like I don't know about you guys, but when I was on a consult call with people, I was like, you have no idea how much your life is about to change. Like it really like if it and I was like, that's where for me, I was like, if it doesn't work for you, I will literally give you your money back. I'm like, it has never hurt anybody I've ever worked with. So if you're concerned about it hurting you, I was like, I will literally give you your money back if you go through the whole thing, if you do all the things that we talk about. I am totally fine with that. But like, so that's where I kind of like in here, that's where I kind of am like, but more in an understanding way, and also not like I'm not saying that before they have a decision to make personally. Like I found that like this was more successful. And then it was just kind of like it was a selling conversation, not like a believing conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So great questions. And if you guys have any more questions, I'm like so happy to give them to you. To let you know like any other pieces of it. But I wanted to like just finish up like the things that I want you guys to have in place so that when you go to have a consult call with people, you're not like trying to recreate the wheel every single time. Because I found that like for my first, I did 17 consult calls in like the first like 2 months. It was insane. Coaching kids, it was weird and it was pandemic, how things were going. But I want to make sure that you guys are also doing follow-ups within 48 hours. I found that that's really helpful. Or it'll be like a follow-up, a payment email, and there's also a no for now. Like it's like if you're a no for now, that's totally fine. Thank you so much for taking this hour to work with me. I don't know if I have that linked, but I will. It's in another classroom that I'll definitely put in here. But regardless of like there are only 3 options. It's like yes, maybe, no for now. Those are the only 3 options that you'll get from a consult call, but it's helpful to have people make the decision on the call. So you want to make sure you've got like your payment link ready. You want to make sure you also have an onboarding email ready. These are the things that I did for my onboarding email. So they might be helpful for you guys. And I've included all of this within the documents. So if you look, I created like all the copies. So I just literally like went through. I don't know why it's not showing me the bar, but like I went through and I just went top to bottom. This is what you're going to see. This is the video. And then you've got the pre-consult call worksheet. What I would do, what I recommend is I would say creating something that's like pre-consult and have that and make a copy each time you do a consult. So like I have pre-consult for like all of you guys. Like I literally did this for all of you, even now at this stage of my business. It just helps me to build belief. Then what you want to do is you want to take this and instead of career transformation, you want to change the categories to your pillars and then you want to change it to your timeline. Also, I've heard why and why not are harsh terms. So feel free to use whatever terms feel best for you. Up to you. This is the not now email. Yeah. So this is like, I really want to touch base with you. Here's a link to this. Or link to it's like I want to continue to support you in every way. So I'll like don't be a stranger. I'll reach out every once in a while. Like anything you want to say. I invited them to my Facebook group. You do not have to. Follow up. If you do a follow up, it's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm including my contract. Let me know if you have any questions and we'll get back to you. And then afterwards, you want to do an evaluation. You want to think about why, like what happened, and like really take some time, whether it's like right after the call or a little bit after, but answer these questions about like, were you committed? What were you thinking? When did you get in your head? It's not did you, when. It's like even now I still get in my head sometimes and I'm like, oh gosh, it's like, I hope you feel okay about this. It's like, it just feels like it can feel really funky. Normalize that. And also being like, okay, what was going on? How could I solve for that in the future? Did you understand where they were? Did you lose them? Did you get confused? What were their objections? For me, I was very friendly and I think people didn't want to say no to me. So like for me, I would never have objections. And just be wary if you never get objections, it might be because people just can't say no to you. And then they'll say no to you in an email later. So it's fine learning. And I'm like, hey, we're still going to be friends. I just want to help you make the best decision for you. No pressure to sign up to work with me. A lot of times people say no pressure implies that there is pressure. It's just the way I like to talk. Coaching through their obligation, their objection. If not, what did you say? How did the call end? And then I like to have what worked, what didn't work, and what we could do differently. And this is the old onboarding email that I had. I included the waiver, coaching calls. This is okay. So what you want to do, here it is. You want to send the payment link first. Do not send an onboarding email taking time to make the folders, all this stuff, if they're not working with you, which I know might sound like, yes, of course that makes sense. But I can't tell you guys how many times I get so excited. I'm like, they're going to be a perfect fit. And I'd make them like a folder and they would have all this stuff. And I'd make them a Slack channel and all these things. They'd be like, and no, not for me later. And I was like, so don't, until you get the payment in your email, do not send them any of these things. And then after they send it to you, and I think I have that in the correct order on here. Yeah, payment email, how to onboard. If you wanted to use my onboarding process, this is a quick 7-minute video. Ooh, off the shoulder, kind of fancy. And then you can send them the onboarding email. Forgot that's what I was wearing. So that is it for today. That is it. And next week we are going to be talking about how to network. I mentioned this in the stream last night during our office hours, but Jess brought up a really good point. She was like, I don't have any of this. If you're starting from ground zero, this is a great place to start. Just networking and getting to know people. I want you to brainstorm at least 5 places for you to get to know people before our next call. 5 different places that you either like. I go to Core Power, so it's like a yoga place that I went to. NC State I had connections with, some like clubs at NC State. So it's like I had connections with the school, I had connections with groups. I went to the student health center and I went to a therapist that I had. So I was like, these are all places that I could brainstorm and meet people. I want you to have 5 before next week. And you can watch that and see what I'm talking about. Yes, we are meeting today. So sorry, Demetria. I did not mean to say that. Here are some examples of things that I said. We were talking about like her doing like parent Facebook groups. This is another Facebook group, college tutoring, like other places. I want you guys to be thinking about that today. And then just in case anyone was wondering, I tagged you guys all on Instagram, but accountability hour is going to be on Mondays from 8 to 9. And then I'm just canceled when I'm out of town. So you guys know, if you got the canceled email, I think that Andrea, you mentioned that you're like, I thought it was canceled. And I was like, that's on me. So I just canceled things in the future just so that you wouldn't get an update about it. I've got an awesome guest coach for Nay. It's going to be coming for you guys in May. And some other people that might be coming if like to do a little bit of teaching, maybe a little bit of coaching. So if you've any requests for that, put it in the chat. If you would like to do a before video, I know that we're a month in. You can still totally do that. Fill out the weekly form. I'm going to be checking them on Mondays. And then to celebrate all of us as badass business owners, I added your wins here. So I saw, like, if you want to see other people's wins, I didn't want to like read them out loud because you didn't know it was going to be public, but I did want to put them here, and there was nothing like those too crazy. And Demetria, I just want to celebrate you for giving your notice at work. She's officially like leaving her job and going full time in her business. So fuck yeah. So proud of you guys. This is awesome. I'm also, I forgot to include in here I would love to hear what you think so far. I know it's really overwhelming. Like the first 6 weeks of this program are like fire hose of information. And then you have 18 weeks to just like really let it sit in and like sink in and like apply all this stuff. But I wanted to let you know you guys are doing great. And I'm very proud of you. So that's it for today. Are there any questions about what we just talked about? Questions about the future? Or raise your hand for some coaching? All the above. God, I feel like I just talked for like an hour and I was close. Sorry that went a little long today. Just important. Nobody wants, and y'all want some coaching. I'm sure of it. Who would like to go first? It can be on anything. Y'all. Okay, I'm just gonna go down the line. If you don't want to talk, it's okay. Talia.
I was just thinking like my position is I'll always take coaching, but I didn't really think about something ahead of time. So but I'll tell you, I've been feeling like a little bit stuck in the last week or two.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we can start there.
So what's a win? Let's
A
start
win. Why can't I remember any of my wins? Okay, a win is I finally made a decision, and this is where I've been like spinning an indecision. I made a decision about the name for my program, and I'm like settled on the like big picture structure of like my pillars and program.
Oh my God, amazing. And what's your
That's
favorite color again?
Say again?
What's your favorite color?
Teal, turquoise.
Awesome.
We're in there.
Amazing. What are you gonna call your program? What is it?
It's called the Empowered Path program.
Oh, look at that. Freaking love it. Okay, now tell me about the stuckness.
I think the root of it is well, where my thoughts are is I like kind of did the self-employed equivalent of quitting my job, right? Like I sent off all of my divorce clients. And I'm now I had like a say again?
I did not know that you did this.
Yeah. So I did that. And at the beginning, it's interesting. Like when I made the decision, I had a bunch of energy for my coaching business, and I signed 2 clients right away. Like made the decision to transition them, like took a step to transition them, signed 2 coaching clients. And now I'm in the like, oh shit period. Cause I like passed like on my calendar a date I would have been billing those clients. And I did not do that because they're going off to other attorneys. And so I'm in it's kind of like I've jumped back to last year when I was unemployed and starting my coaching business, and made the decision to go back to practicing law in divorce because like I needed to give my coaching baby some time to grow up before I had to pay rent. And so, but now I'm like, oh God, I did it again, you know? So I'm like my brain is like, you have to get a job or like go do something miserable. And it's just got me like completely stuck, not taking action. And so like, that's where So the thought I'm trying to hold on to is like, you have a job, you have a business, you've had clients who pay you, like you're gonna have to go out and grow business no matter what your offer is. So you might as well do the one that you like, that like you're excited about, and not make yourself miserable.
Which
But
that's like, that sounds so good instead of one that makes you miserable. But your brain is so not on board with this.
no.
It's like when you're like, oh my God, like my business is so fun. I don't feel stressed at all the way I think about my business. It's great. Everything is fine. And this is like, we need to get down to like the root cause of like the like not so great feeling thoughts. And then we can shift into these when your brain actually feels safe to believe them, because it doesn't feel safe right now. That's why it's
Right.
not, you know? So tell me, like, what it's like, you saw the date of the that you're supposed to see the money that the divorce clients that you signed previously. And I think this is like, we have talked, I think, briefly about the polyvagal theory, but like um there's big T trauma and there's little T trauma that happened to us. I think that like,
Yeah.
maybe it could be even considered big T trauma to like go for your job and then come back to like, oh, now I think that situation could have been like little T or big T traumatizing. And so what happens is your neuroreceptors, which are these cells in your brain, they think that not having a career, a typical job or a typical business is a threat now.
Yeah.
It's a threat to your safety. And so what are those thoughts about like the threat that like this pace? It's like, is it, I'm not gonna be able to pay for things? It's like that, give me that flavor.
Um, yeah, I think that I have like, I don't know if this is exactly getting to your question, but I have a lot of thoughts about like not being taken seriously. I think like credibility type thoughts, which is why I mean, I knew in law school I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I got like an extra law degree, because I was like searching
Gotcha.
for, I was searching for like external worth, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's like my brain doesn't believe that like following my purpose and doing something I enjoy is like a way that you can actually make a living.
Yep. And when we talk about is not able to make a living. So within that, I want you to think about like, it's like, I think it's like, I'm not going to be able to make like, it's like, I'm not credible. It's like, with the not taking seriously, do you feel like people won't work with you because you don't have a full-time job? Is that the thought?
No, it's like I don't know. It's like I think the like the belief I have from like uh there's been a lot of like in the past like direction changes that I've received external judgment about, like people telling me that like I can't commit to anything. I'm always changing my mind, I'm always changing direction. And this feels like a direction change. But I think what I what I know is that all of those direction changes came because I was like not listening to myself. I was just like using these external measures of success and like trying different things, and everything felt bad because like that's the wrong way to make decisions. And so this feels like my decision,
Yeah.
but I'm still hearing these people like judging me for changing my mind and not committing to the thing that I previously was committed to. which
Yeah.
ironically I did away from coaching last year. Like again, and so now I'm like, I just have to like, I'm not doing, this is what I want to do. I know this is what I want to do. I'm not doing anything different. I'm not going down the path of like, I should get a job or I should like sign divorce clients. I'm not doing that. And my brain's like, but you're gonna die. Like
But
you're gonna be homeless and starve to death.
okay, so that's what I was looking for. You're going to be homeless and starve to death. Okay. So your brain is like super scared right now. And you're like, no, I just need to follow my purpose. And your brain's like, purpose and starvation and homelessness? No. And so what I did with another client, like instead of going deep into your subconscious, deep into your past to find out like what this thought, like where it came from. It's like, oh, well, this came from when I was in third grade, or this is like, oh, this is the trauma that this is linked to. There probably is something like that. However, one of the things that we like, sometimes it's useful, and other times it's like, oh, I can see, like, and for me, it was helpful to like visualize a character. So if anyone has seen Harry Potter, I did this last week, and like Harry Potter, there's this creature called a boggart, and within that creature, it takes what you're scared of, and like it becomes whatever you're scared of. You have to like laugh at it and say ridiculous, and then the creature changes into something that you find amusing. So that's what I want to do with this thought. Okay, so it's like you're homeless and starved to death. I want you to picture like a character in like a movie or something that like embodies this feeling, like embodies this thought. Like there's been like we've done Eeyore, I've like there's like perfectionist Polly Pocket, like I was just like thinking about like the in like the homeless and starved to death. I don't know if you've seen Hercules, like cartoon, where it's like the world is ending. Oh, there's like this guy and he's like runs around, he's like, it's ending. He's like, it's gonna be horrible. That's who I picture for here. So
Yeah.
what could be like a character that you could separate yourself from this?
Well, I mean, it's not a character, but like my ex and his whole family comes up for
Woo!
this.
And we can just like graciously give that back to them and be like, thank you so much. I truly like I know was coming from a place that you feel like served you and me at the time.
Yeah.
And now we're just gonna move forward with something that you choose. And like I want you to like comfort yourself, because every time this gets triggered, it's probably the version of you that was with him.
Yeah.
I've been experiencing a lot of that recently. It's super fun, love it. But I want you to see that like it's like you can comfort her and be like, what did she need to hear at that time?
Hmm.
Like, what did you need to hear when they're like, you're gonna be homeless and starve to death?
I think I just needed to hear like the world is actually a safe place. You know, like it doesn't, not everything is a threat.
Mhm.
I think that was just like I lived under the like constant like paranoia of like everything is a threat. Like every time you leave your house, something like you're gonna get kidnapped. Like that was
Wow,
a
that's
thing.
fun.
Yeah, it was so weird. And now I'm like, I feel like I've aged out of that. Like nobody's gonna want to kidnap me now.
Like well, and also like thinking about like the way that it's like I totally like you're actually okay, we're safe here.
Mhm.
And a thing that I always go to, like I had a thought that like if my business got bigger, I would experience trauma. And if I was like, well, I've experienced trauma before and I figured it out. And it's like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that I'm always gonna be safe, but I can handle it if it's not too,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So that's what I want you to do. Like, and I want you to think about like your body right now and just be like, okay. And also another thing that you can do is like be like, okay, this is just a job. If it feels like that too intense, be like, it's a job. This is just a job. It doesn't mean anything about me. I'm not gonna put my self-worth in this. I'm just gonna go out and do this. Like it's just a business,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Is that are you able to get a little bit less activated with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that like the like having like gone through all of that and like seeing this, like going back to my like initial thought, like my brain tells me like you have to get a job. And like telling myself like I have a job. This
Yep.
is my job. What I need to do is like go out and work in my business.
Yep.
Like that is the thing that I need to do. And I think that like reminding myself of that, like this, like not just a job, but like is a job is helpful for me.
Exactly. It like this is a job.
Mhm.
And I want you to think about like, what would it take for you to get out of this like freeze and like actually start to take some action? Like, what would you need to, what kind of things would you be able to do if you felt safe? Like, okay, it's safe for me to work in my business. It's okay. What kind of action would you want to take as the CEO of your business?
I'm actually realizing that I've been really stuck on social media because like there's so much like in the coaching world, I feel like there's so much focus on social media. And that is, I know, and that's one of the things that like one of the stories, like that's how people are gonna figure out how to kidnap me is like because I post on social media.
Yeah.
That's funny. I hadn't thought about that. So like I have like this like image in mind that I like have to post on social media. And then my brain's like, no, that's dangerous. And then when I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm doing nothing.
And then
So
so you've created a stress cycle that we weren't aware of, and now we are. It's like, okay, so every time I go to post on social, I'm going to feel stressed, and because I feel like it's dangerous, and then I'm going to do nothing, and then I'm going to feel stressed because I'm doing nothing. So it's
yeah.
this we great awareness for the cycle, and I want you to think about like if you want to, you can either change the circumstance or you can change your thoughts. And you can be like, okay, I'm going to work to create better thoughts around safety in social media, and I'm also going to do other things. So what kind of things could you do that are not social media related? And also everybody, I want you to be thinking about this because this is going to come up next week. And if you've got any coaching for Talia, be prepped mentally and emotionally.
For me, I think it actually is worth getting over my blocks about social media. So because I do quite a bit of in-person networking already. And I think that so it's not like I'm not doing anything, but I feel like this like stuckness like comes through my energy when I'm networking as well. So I think pushing through that feels worth it to me.
Yes. And I want you to think about like when you're networking, what you could like when you go out and like network in person, being like, I'm safe to network. Like I'm not gonna get kidnapped. It's like this is just a person. I really think I could help them, you
Yeah.
know? And I think the emotion I want you to practice, I want you to first off build awareness for when you're not feeling safe. And then I want you to practice the emotion of safety. What can you think as you're networking and as you're on social media to ground you back into that feeling of, okay, I'm safe here. I'm going to be okay.
I think something along the lines of like the world is like a fundamentally like abundant and safe place.
Beautiful. And I want you to like put it on a post-it note, put it near your desk, or find something that like you can look at. Like I've got like a little like stone here. So it's like you can like have a little stone. But anytime that you're feeling like that emotional change, a lot of times I go feelings first. I don't recognize the thoughts until afterwards. So be like, okay, I'm feeling triggered. What can I do to create that safety for myself in that moment? But that's awesome. I'm so proud of you for figuring out that cycle and breaking away from like the danger zone of putting yourself out there. Awesome.
Thank you.
Open to any coaching from anybody else?
Yeah.
All right, people, raise your hand. I'll call on you. You've got any ideas? Sarah.
One thing I would offer is like with social media too, it's for me, it's been something I've worked through 3 years, but I'm really feeling it shift right now. And I think a big part of it is like because we're blasted with messages with regards to how we should do it and what it's supposed to look like, and like all of those like rules of social media and what the algorithm needs from us and all the rest of it. Really kind of like think about like a little kid who goes and plays. Like if you had a game where you had like a million rules, like the kid's like, this is not fun, right? It feels like it's not set up for you to win. And
Mhm.
so part of that is like really kind of scrapping the rules of social media and detaching from some of the vanity metrics and things like that, and making it like your own. It's a creative vehicle, and like we are creative beings, and we're all here part of this mastermind because we feel compelled to create. But you got to like kind of clear the slates of what they tell you the rules of social media are, so that you can approach it from a place of like, well, like what do I want to create into this space, and how to make it fun, instead of it being like something that you got to like push yourself to do or force yourself to do. Like that will only get you so far. Maybe you'll be consistent for a week, maybe you'll be consistent for 2, maybe 2 months, but then you can only sustain that for so long. So part of that is just like, I think kind of coming back to the drawing board and being like, how could I create this as a fun space for me? And one of the other things that I found super helpful is I like to zoom out and think about my potential client experience. And I'm like, how can I build in more safety for them when they're engaging? So as I'm doing outreach and things like that for someone who doesn't really know me or who kind of sort of knows me, for them to feel my humanity come through, my sincerity come through, and just going about there that way, my way, has kind of given me the power back over using social media as a tool.
That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah. And like if you think about like I think something that we said last week was like 4,000 thoughts if you're trying to force a new thought versus 20 thoughts if you are in a state of play and levity. And that's why I think like finding like that levity and like changing those thoughts is really, really helpful.
Mhm.
And why after you create that like safety, if you can get into like, y'all, there is no right way to run a business at all. I'm giving you one way, the way I did it. There is no right way to do it. What would be good for you? What would feel like fun? What would be like a way for you to express yourself? I think that was such a beautiful like way of saying that, Sarah. And like instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna win social media, being like, what do I want this business to look like? If I could choose today, what would I want it to look like? And then testing it out, seeing if it works, and then going for it. So I think that's badass. I love that. And I think Maria also had something to add.
Well, first off, Sarah, thanks for sharing that, because maybe you just like gave me the coaching I needed today.
Amazing.
Because I was like, yeah. So that was great. Thank you. I was gonna check in with you on like the safety stuff. Because like knowing when you're like feeling unsafe and knowing like how to check in with yourself, and then like do you feel like you have a good like checklist of like if you're in a location and you're like, I'm feeling the feeling of unsafety, and like using your intuition and your logical brain to like gut check of like, is there someone around? Have I like looked around myself? Because I think like overriding or like being like, oh, I'm just like safe all the time. I think there can be like I also have like a very strong like fear imagination. So like a lot of the things you said first off are like really relatable. Like my brain also does a thing where I'm like, I'm definitely gonna starve and like be totally homeless. I don't know why it's like that. But I also like grew up having like really I would just like randomly think like the house was gonna burn down. I like remember telling my mom that as a little girl. And thinking that I had this like intuition.
Yeah.
And so I was just gonna like check in on like, do you feel like you have a good like way to gut check and check in with yourself? Because sometimes like you might be right about being unsafe, and like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want you to like
Ignore that.
ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I would say that's like a skill in process for me, and I appreciate the question. I actually was just thinking about that on my walk this morning because I'm just like super sensitive, and I have like the same thing as a kid. I was just like, oh, I learned to catastrophize as like a tiny child, you know. I mean, it comes from like emotional abuse and things like that. So there are like my maladaptive habits from childhood are like they came from a like I know where they came from. But the thing that I was realizing this morning is that I, in the past, as an adult, have confused nervous system activation with intuition. And they're like really different. Like my body freaking out doesn't mean there's actually danger. And so I think that like that's what has been useful for me is like, okay, I'm gonna like take take myself out of nervous system activation, like do my breathing and stuff, and then sit in the quiet and see what my body has to tell me then. So the answer is kind of, but I'm aware of the importance of that. And I do appreciate that question because, yeah, I mean, they're like, it's not, the world is not without risk, right? But like, no one gets out alive. So I'm trying not to like keep the radar too activated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really relatable too. I feel like I have like so many moments where I'm like, this is really wrong. And then I have to let it like settle. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
let me like luckily none of those situations are like life and death, but actually it sounds like you also do have like a pretty like you actually do like when if something were life and death that you also have the trust with yourself that you would take action in the direction that you wanted to and you wouldn't like override it or ignore it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm pretty pretty conservative with like physical safety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was huge for me, confusing nervous system activation versus intuition. Yeah, that's I think a lot of us do that and we're like, oh my God, I'm feeling something, it doesn't feel right. And that's where you really letting it settle and recalibrate is huge. And I was thinking about like why it's so our nervous systems can get like so, and actually the person who's coming on in May is gonna talk to us about nervous systems. So I'm so excited for you guys to like have her teach you guys some like more nervous system work. It sounds like a lot of you guys are very well versed in it. But one of the things that I it was thinking about this like as a business. So it's like the biggest like threats to your primitive subconscious brain are failure, abandonment, and rejection. Do you know what you face constantly in business? All of these things. So it makes sense as to why your nervous system gets activated like literally all the time when you're in business. Because it's like you are constantly this, it's like you have to kind of like really like just shift your whole subconscious and be like, okay, it's like just because I mess this up doesn't mean I'm gonna die. If I like they choose not to like me for this post I did, I'm not getting abandoned or rejected. I'm gonna be okay. And so I think that like it's so important for you to like honor this. And that was such a good point, Maria. And also like recognizing that like this is like going to be very normal and natural for all of us. Like it's the way that you're feeling is so valid. And I just want to like completely validate it. And also, if you can start to notice that and see if you can use that imagination, like instead of catastrophizing, envisioning and being like, okay, this is something that could happen. Let me make a game plan for that. And this is something that I want to choose to focus on instead. I think Andrea mentioned that in the group. She was like talking about like how she was like it was like, what do you want to focus on? And I was like, somebody said it. And I was like, oh, this is you want to definitely focus on yeah, change my thought downloads instead of working to create desire for the end goal instead of downloading on gloom and doom. And I was like, yes, because again, it takes 5 positive thoughts to replace every negative thought. That's why we start with 5 positives. And you want to make sure that you're like trying to like shift your brain, not when it's like an actual fear, but like as much as you can when you notice it's nervous system versus intuition. Huge. Awesome. Anyone else have anything to add? This was like this. I'm like literally like want to do like a post about. That's so good.
Yeah. So I just wrote that down too.
Exactly. I was like, this is so good. Oh, I love our goals.
Thank you.
Thank you for going first. And I know that took a little bit, but I'm like, I feel like this is so helpful for all of us. Awesome, awesome stuff. Maria, did you have something you said that you wanted to get coached on, but are you feeling good about what Sarah said?
Like in general, I'm feeling like last week I legit feel so much shame in my life.
Yeah.
And so like in general, I'm just like feeling like a new human because that was sitting like under the surface for way long. Um, I still I still have some like thoughts rumbling around in my head, but if someone else has something that they're like really wanting coaching on, I could go either way.
Okay, let's check in and see if anybody else has anything immediate. Demetria, I didn't know if you had anything because you just left your job. Andrea, I know we've been like messaging back and forth a lot. Sarah, I would love to hear like where you guys are at, and if not, we can go and jump into Maria. Also, I appreciate that. You were so awesome for like sharing space, and also know it's okay for you to take up space too. Anybody else? Sarah?
I think I just want to like give it back to Maria, like personally, or anyone else who feels the coaching would be super helpful. I don't know if Demetria is saying something, but I could just update the group kind of with where I'm at super quickly. Like I shared with you all, I'm going to be like, for me, when I think of like what I just shared with all of you and like making it fun and things like that, I like little challenges that allow me to tap into my creativity. And I like some of the aspects that go into content creation, like just sharing my message. And it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I've just kind of paired the Project 84 challenge that I'm going to be doing with that. So I'm feeling really good about that, and kind of getting the ball rolling with that this week. And it's just been such an interesting thing to notice how sufficient I feel right now in myself, in my life, in my business. Such a huge shift in my entrepreneurial journey. I am scaling back one of my contracts this month to create more space for my own business, because I realized like it's just kind of a capacity issue. It wasn't like a mental block or a mindset thing of like I have resistance to doing what I know works. It's just been more of like my schedule has been as full as I want it to be. And so the only way to kind of go from good to great in my life is to scale back one. And I think in the past, my nervous system would be really freaked out right now, wouldn't have wanted me to go away on a weekend trip or things like that. Would have been like, we need to crush all this content and more content. And, but no, it's really not like that this time. And I think, you know, I said it last week, and I think maybe it's just the message that we can all benefit from hearing again, but like what you appreciate appreciates. And I love my life right now. And I love what my business is gifting me. But it's interesting. I think the switch actually has been that my life fuels my business. I'm not dependent on my business to fuel my life. I've kind of like broken out of a codependency with my business, and it's been huge.
Woo! That is huge. I do feel like, especially like when you're thinking about your business being a source of income for you, so normal and natural to be like, oh, I have to be dependent on this. But it can just, I think this is a huge thing. And I want you to do a post about this for sure, about like the codependency that we create with our business, because you can have relationships with things that are not people. And I think that if you think about the relationship with you and your business, if you are depending on your business to make sure your life works, that's what I think Tali was talking about, like not making the baby pay the rent. It's like when you can have that separation and you can have like the life is fueling my business, that's when I just have this business to fuel my life. That's when you can separate yourself from it and then detach that dependency. So damn good.
One of the exercises that I would love to just offer to the group that's really helped me over time is sometimes I'll just ask myself, like, if I was in a relationship with my business, like a romantic relationship, how would my business describe me as a partner?
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I think the thing that I've really worked on building for my business is unconditional love and unconditional commitment. And I think about showing up as the partner I want my business to be. And I've done a lot of work. And I think that's what's helped me kind of break out of that codependency, is like I can depend on myself to be who I want to be in this lifetime, to be who I want to be as a CEO, regardless of what's happening in my business. So I'm less attached to vanity metrics and numbers that I was super attached to in the past.
Yeah. I would not even want to, at the beginning of my business, y'all, like I hated my business and I still like get caught up in things like where I'm like, oh, just so much like resentment and negative emotion to think about how my business is receiving the way I think about it and feel about it as like a human entity. Really, really powerful work. I'm probably going to do some of that today and just be like, that would be really interesting. And I think that another thing I did was thinking about like a person you have a really good relationship with and imagining that like you get to experience that. Like, I don't know if y'all know, I love my cats and Jax, the dog. It's like, I love them so much. And I was like, what if I like went to my business with the same amount of excitement that I did with them? Or like Rob, like, yes, doing that with money. That's a great idea to do it with money. There's a book called The Soul of Money that I have not read yet, but apparently it's like akin to it. And if you can think about how would you want business to describe you, how would you want money to describe you, how can you build that relationship? And if you go with a neural pathway that's already like solid with another person in a relationship, that can sometimes help to build that neural pathway of belief in that. Oh, I need to read that. Okay. On my list, Andrea. Okay, this is awesome. Genius. Anybody else have any thoughts for Sarah, or we want to move back to Maria? All right. I mean, like that was solid freaking update. I'm so excited for you. This is awesome. And Maria, what is your favorite color also? Just to get you random question.
Let's go with pink.
Awesome.
Sarah, that was like super helpful. I was just thinking like if I looked at my business the way that I like think about my daughter,
Oh,
I'm like, it's so easy. It's like, of course I'm like excited for her to walk, but I'm like, I don't need her to like walk. Like I actually want her to walk when she's ready to walk. Like I don't want to be the mom that's like, you better fucking make this milestone by the time that like all the other babies do it or whatever. Like I actually just want her to like be ready when she's ready. And it's like, because I like
got emotional with that.
It's so great because like my relationship with my daughter is so like I trust it so much. It's so pure. It's so like it's so much unconditional love, and it's so easy for me to like. It's like never felt more natural to like love her in that way, and so yeah, it's like really cool to think about doing that with my business.
Well, and like
not putting the because I definitely like am a stage mom to my business.
yeah,
I'm like perform.
Yeah.
do the things. And I can see how that's like incredibly shitty. Like if my business was a person or a baby.
And like I think that like uniquely as this group is all like women, I think that one of the things that am not going to make any like grandiose stereotypes or anything like that, but one of the things that I think if we could think about like, it's like we have, when we're talking about like the creativity aspect, I think that Sarah mentioned previously, it's like, this is a clean state. What do I want to do and what do I want to create? I was thinking about like we have like almost like birthed these businesses. Like it's almost like these are like creative expressions of our mind that we have brought into the world. And it's like, oh, sometimes we do it on accident. It's like sometimes like I don't know about you guys, but like my business kind of started on accident. I was like, oh, this kind of seems like it makes sense. And it wasn't necessarily like something that I always had dreamed of. But I was thinking about like, what if you wanted your business, like you really wanted, like, I really want to be a mother someday. I think that's why it like hit me so hard. I was like, I really want to be a mom. I've always really wanted to like have cats. And I was actually thinking about this, like, because I've never always wanted to have a dog. And I was like thinking about like how I would react if I really, really thought of myself as someone who wanted to have a job, someone who wanted to have a business. And like, I think that would really, like, if you really wanted your business, like you wanted like a child, or if you wanted an animal or a place to live or a lifestyle to have, how different would your business be? So that was really cool.
Yeah.
So within that, that was a lot of depth. Oh my God. Sage Mom and Tiger Mom to business. So damn good. Is there anything that you feel like within that, like that pressure that you're putting on your business, does it feel like it's alleviated? Do you feel like there's, or are you feeling like,
Well, yeah, that's funny that you say that, because I'm like, if I just were like, here's what I want, here's what I'm thinking about, and this other part of my brain about coaching, I feel like it would totally contradict everything
oh yeah, that's
I'm
okay.
talking about.
We're never
Because like I'm kind of like I don't I'm kind I'm in this place like the coaching that I kind of like want, or that I'm like thinking about, or just all these like questions that kind of roll around in my brain are related to marketing. And it's probably also coming from a place of like stage mommy-ish. Stage mommy. Oh my God. My
So
alter
funny.
ego. That's so funny. Because I grew up dancing too. Luckily, my mom was not a stage mom. But you know, you saw them around. Uh, um so anyway, I'm like, it's like, oh, you know, like, should I, it's almost like all these like shoulds, like, would it be better to just like, I think the core thing that I like grapple with sometimes is that I sometimes feel like, sometimes I have like fun with my marketing, sometimes I feel like it takes a long time. And so then I feel like I'm kind of dancing between, it's like I live into, I either am like, you know what, fuck it, and I just like, you know, I'm like, I'm just like quantity, and I'm not and then even though when I'm in the quantity bubble over here, I don't think that my marketing is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it's like really, really low quality.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that completely. I think that a little bit, because then I go into I swing to the other side of the pendulum, and I'm like, oh, you know, no wonder, like, I start blaming the marketing for like, maybe for like not creating consults.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, well, if you like if you spent more time on your marketing, or you're like more thoughtful, or you know, blah, 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 like, then maybe you would be like, you know, like my brain starts telling me like, of course, because you're just kind of like willy-nilly, or like writing captions on the go. And so I can tell, I know that there's some shit to clean up in terms of like, what would be the most helpful thing to think about marketing. And like, because both of those things can be like fine too, like going on like doing a marketing, like thinking about marketing as like, listen, I am going to go for like quantity. I think there's like value in both, but my brain's just like taking me on a little bit of a merry-go-round, maybe to avoid something else. I don't know.
Well, I think that like someone said it earlier, but I think that, and I was actually talking with Jess about this yesterday, within I feel like our world, I think a lot of us are sold that like social media marketing is the way to build clients. Like, and so when you're talking about marketing, you're actually only talking about one type of marketing.
I know, I'm putting like all the pressure, I'm putting all the eggs in that basket.
Yes. And guess what? The purpose of social media marketing is, and this is what we're going to talk about next week, is its literal nickname is called billboard marketing. It's called outbound marketing, and it takes a long time to convert. Think about how many times you bought something that cost thousands of dollars from a billboard. Some of us, maybe. I have not done that before, and I think it's rare at best. The purpose of social media marketing is to spread your message, especially at this stage in our businesses, not necessarily to make money, not to bring people in, not to book consults right away. There will be a shift where that happens, but for right now, the real way that people build that really quality, we're building up the skill of, and we're going to do both. You're going to do the marketing on social media, and you're also going to do interactive marketing, which we're going to talk about next week, is like building that know, like, and trust factor, talking to people, making sure you're like messaging, networking with people. That's why it's such a big deal. And what happened is like, I focused all of last year. I spent like over like 1,800 hours just on Instagram alone. 900 posts in 1 year, you guys. That's an exorbitant amount of posts. And I spent 40 hours just networking and like talking to people. 40 to 1,800. I got 25 consults from just talking to people about coaching, and we'll get into that, like how you do that. And I had a 76% conversion rate. For Instagram, I got 7 consults and 4 clients. We still want to build this up. We don't want to just like throw Instagram out, throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you want to be talking to people. Like, so I'm doing both. I'm still spending more time on posting this year, but I want you to think about like, where did your clients come from before? Did they come from social media?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as you're kind of talking through this, I'm like, so actually, if that's what I think is like tripped me up in some ways, is because like I like doubled down on social media,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a self-fulfilling. So like, if I just look, the majority of my clients have outreached me on social media, and they've maybe been people that I've like, some of that, like, you know, my very first client was like a college, we were in the same sorority, and that I've had a handful of clients like that. And then she's like referred me, or she's actually like been like, oh yeah, I'm working with Maria like at weddings and shit. And then like other people that are in my network that know, like, and trust. So like referrals, social media. There was like one client that I met like through a network. And so in 2020, I like started my business halfway through 2020. And there was a while where I was like really on top of like going to Zoom network things. And what it felt like happened was like, it was all a bunch of coaches trying to like, I think that I needed to cut bait, but then replace it with something else potentially, or keep working the problem. Instead, I was like, God, I'm fucking sick of Zoom. And I like stopped. And I think now there's maybe an opportunity to like replace that with like something in person, or try to like get myself more like integrated into, like, I live in Park City, but which like there are communities here. But I also am like close to Salt Lake City, which there are like even more communities.
Yes. And we want to talk
so
about
like that. I haven't, if I look at like every single client I have, I'm like, not that really, like really more have come from like social media, or like they reach out on social, or I know they've seen something on social, but that's because like I've also like stopped doing the other things completely.
Right, exactly. So it's like if you don't network at all, if you do 0 hours of network, you're probably not going to find clients from there.
Yeah, of course.
I would say that, just like throwing that out there. However, I do think that like you don't want to like throw out social media. That's why I was like, I want to come back to like social media thoughts because I think it's really important. But I also want to like point out that like all the most I have had, again, 7 in all of last year that were like completely random, reached out to me on social media. I'd never spoken with them before. I'd never met them. I'd never heard of them before. And then they started working. Now there's a shift. The reason why marketing was one of the first things that I taught you guys about is because there's a shift. When you get to a certain point, you'll start to bring in more of the social media, just like random people. And that's actually what's happened this year. So it's like now I've had like some of you guys I didn't know before this. I had no connection with you, didn't have any like ties to you, and you found me. So that's why we want to do both. We want to have the marketing going, and that's why I want to talk to you about like the thoughts around it. But I also want to take my purpose in bringing up like the networking piece is that like if you're like, okay, networking primarily is going to bring in the people, then you can you can alleviate some pressure because your clients aren't coming from one source.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we want to take some of that pressure off, and like that's what I was trying to do with that. Is like be like, okay, there are so many ways that I can meet people. There are so many ways that I can like work with people. How do I want to? What would work for me? You know, it's like that's what we want to do.
Totally. And like it is actually it is energizing to like be with people again. Like I've started going to like in-person workout classes, which is like so refreshing to me. Like being, you know what I mean? Like I'm like a combo. Like I sometimes get a ton of energy for being like extroverted, and sometimes I need like solo time to rejuvenate, but there's like such a way to balance that in my lifestyle right now.
Me too.
Um
Let's give it a try. Let's just like it's like diversifying your income, whereas diversifying your lead generation. So
yeah, I'm excited that the networking like stuff is this coming week.
yeah, and I already posted it, so feel free right after this if you want to dig on in. It's right here.
I was thinking about that too, and I'm like, it's not. I don't, and maybe like I'll want coaching on it. Right now, it doesn't feel like there's like a huge block in doing it. Like I definitely was like, it doesn't. It feels like I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom and like nothing's, you know. And I was kind of starting to question like, is this really like, is this working? But I think like right now in this moment, I don't feel like, yeah, I feel like it's more of like a learning curve and relearning like how do I go about it in a thoughtful way that doesn't feel just like I'm showing up to like you know, random things, or I'm just doing it in a way that there's like a little bit of like, I think the next thing for me is like a little bit of learning and then starting to like execute and play around with it again.
And like what I was talking to Jess about in that post that I tagged, and feel free to look back at it. But I was like, who could be a great person for this? Finding like some like networking, women in leadership, like those kind of things. And then to add on to that, the next layer, we're going to, not this week, but next week, you guys are going to learn how to do a webinar. So you're going to learn how to do presentations that you'll be able to like position yourself as a position of expertise. I was gonna say authority, and I'm like, that sounds weird. It's like when you're gonna be like in a position where you're like, I'm an expert in this field with a bunch of people that you're like, I can help you, and then you're gonna be able to like generate leads that way. So that's like the biggest thing is like we want to diversify like how we're bringing people in, you know. But I think
yeah, and I think like when I look at like I've been feeling like called again to like do webinars and all of that stuff too, because I've done them in the past.
yeah,
And then it's hard to know exactly like where like what happened, like the exact reason why I stopped. And that I don't know that matters so much as like I'm now like a mom. I'm now like my time during the day is like sectioned, but I do know that like if I just keep adding stuff on, like that's not my, that can't be my like strategy anymore.
Yeah.
And so like taking the pressure off the marketing, like social media marketing, and being like, it's fine if like it is just like quantity for a week or like whatever, because I'm really focusing on building like a webinar deck, and that is like the priority. I think that's gonna like help me a lot.
Good.
Because I keep thinking I'm like everything has to be at like the same priority or level, where like some weeks something else can take priority that is also marketing and also like I think it's just the shift of like, yeah, not thinking that social media marketing is like the end all be all for like how I'm going to bring in clients or like for anything. Because that's creating this like world where I've gotta, it's like a never ending hamster wheel.
Oh yeah. And it's like it's also like what I think Sarah was saying. Like she was like, it's not fun at all. And you're set up to, it's like I have to win, and it's like so many shoulds, and it just feels horrible. Like I have been there. Still, like I'm making I'm going to like another level where I'm like learning how to like do ads and stuff, and like learning how to create a funnel and things like that. And my brain's like, it has to be perfect. And I'm like, oh hey, old thoughts. It's like I totally feel like new level, same devil, and we're moving on forward. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna make like a million funnels in my lifetime. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. This is super helpful.
Anyone else have any thoughts? If you have them, feel free to like add them to the page too. But I think this is like next week, you guys are gonna be like, oh, this makes sense as to why we're doing what we do. So I hope that helps you guys. And I saw that Jess, you joined this morning, and I'm guessing this might be because you want some coaching. So we're gonna start with a win and your favorite color, and we're gonna get into it.
I swear to God, I keep saying it's like you go inside my brain.
Oh, great.
Um, a win. Honestly, I would say that I went last night to like the work co-working time. Like I told you, I was feeling like really just like I wanted to give up. So
Yep. So how are you feeling now? Also, is your favorite color, did you say blue?
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about everyone. I'm sure it's very normal. I literally am fire hosing you with information. Is that still going on? Are you feeling a little bit better? What's happened since last
I mean, I definitely still feel like it's the fire hose of information, but I feel better knowing that like I'm gonna have time to like catch myself up. Because like I said, I just felt like every week I was getting more and more behind. But I think knowing that once we get to a point where you've kind of put it all out there, I'll get to just keep working on it. That makes me feel a lot better. Because I think I was just feeling like if I feel behind now at like week 4, the rest of these 5 months are going to be a waste, you
Yes.
know?
And I'm going to add feedback. So if you guys are feeling like that, please tell me. You don't even need to put it as like anonymous or anything like that. That's what happened with the last group. And I realized that like I'm giving you so much, and that can be really great. And also, ugh. So if that happens, let me know in the feedback and we can address it next week. And also, it doesn't like we're going to be essentially after you get the first 6 systems, you only have networking and presentations left. Then the rest is just like additional stuff if you want to add it. And then even after that, we're still going to have like 3 months of extra time, which is pretty neat. So, still feeling the fire hose. Is there anything that you want coaching on today to get out of the fire hose and or into just anything else that's going on with your business?
Yeah. So after we talked last night, I was really thinking about like who I want to be targeting and stuff like that. And I feel like the way I approach like high schoolers would be different than like people who are in grad school or who are like young professionals just starting out. Like I feel like if I was going to be talking to parents about getting their kid in coaching, I feel like 3 months seems like a more reasonable length of time than 6 months.
Okay.
And so I'm just thinking about like restructuring my time frame for my program a little bit, and just wondering, I guess, your thoughts on like, because I know we say like we don't want too many options or like too many different things, but part of me thinks how I approach the younger crowd would be different than how I approach like young professionals.
Yes. And sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I'm like, so that's like if I'm like looking at like that was the face. So I think that high school versus grad school, I do think are two different people. Like,
Mhm.
because you're talking, and I think that the difference is, and one of the things that we were talking about yesterday is Janae, who's a friend of mine, she started coaching, like it was tutoring for high school students, and she geared all of her marketing towards high school students, and then realized that the high school students were sold, but the parents weren't necessarily sold. So it almost needed to be like a mix, almost leaning more towards like talking to parents and kids within.
Mhm.
And so she's like literally like rebranded last month, and she's in the process of doing that now. With you, when you're thinking about like restructuring your program, the time, like, I think let's talk about the people versus the timeline in my mind.
Mhm.
So if you were to think about like your program, would you want to target high school? Is like if you were to choose, which would you prefer to work with?
I don't know. I feel like the thing is I like the idea of both.
Hmm.
Um,
So let's
but
go
I
like if you,
but I feel like, sorry, I think it's glitching a little bit.
yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say I feel like right now it might be easier for me to sell to parents and easier to sell to like the high school, like coming into college or like a year away from that, because like I said, I worked with students for 4 years at College of Charleston, and so I know that really well, and I know that I can teach kids how to be successful as they approach really college, or if they're not going to college, even if they're someone who's just going to go into a career path and they want some direction in their life. I know that I'd be really good at that.
Mhm.
Now I have a passion for like young professionals, and I do want to go there, but I think that just knowing myself, it would be easier for me to sell something that I'm really confident in and that I know really well,
Yeah.
like first, you know?
And let's just like take a moment. Stress management, confidence, goal achievement, time management. Do college students or rising high schoolers, do they need this? Yes.
Yeah,
Do
100%.
young professionals also need this?
Yes.
And so like when I was doing general coaching, like I would talk about the same kind of stuff. I would just like
Hmm.
to everybody and I'd be like, okay, like,
Hmm.
and then I would do presentations that set me apart with the niche. So it was like
Hmm.
with the career fulfillment initiative, like I did presentations with like clubs at NC State. I did presentations for classes at NC State, and I was specifically talking to future careers. Whereas then I also did presentations within some organizations, like I did like a women in television, and I did a company that was like an insurance company that one of my clients worked for, and then I led that all to like, okay, your professional growth, so you can keep the same stuff. It's just I think the goal achievement might be different,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you can speak to both and keep it very broad and figure that out. And if you
Hmm.
like 6 months to success, I still think that would be great. Like I said, like it's 6 months of success, whether you're a high school student or you're a or whatever you want to name it. The thing that
Hmm.
I would caution is changing the timeline, because
Hmm.
if you felt like it would be a good amount of time for a grad student, why would we change it for a high school student?
I guess more so I'm thinking about it from like the parents' point of view. Like, do they want to pay to sign their kid up for 6 months of something that they don't know if they're gonna like it or if they want to do it, or if they, I guess, trust me to do it for 6 months, you know what I mean? Which I know maybe that's just me underselling myself, but I just feel like that's a harder sell to a parent for their kid, you know? I don't know.
So I think it's a harder sell because you might not be sold yourself on it being a great thing. So I want you to take some time and be like, why would they want 6 months of coaching? And if you, I was going to try and like, so one of the things that like I had to do is I was like, why would like 12K be better than 6K for people to pay? Like what I was saying, so this goes for anybody who's making a decision. It's almost like you have to build belief for something. Sometimes it helps to negate your current belief. You know what I mean? So it's like, so if that helps you, that is great. And I also like the reasons why when I was selling coaching to like kids, I was like, why would they want to do it? It's like longevity. They can always leave if they're not interested. Like it's like you're gonna be able to go through like multiple growth phases instead of just one. You're going to be able to help them if they grow and they achieve a goal. You're going to be able to help them like what's it called, adjust on the other side. So it's like there are lots of I want you to think of like reasons for yourself, like, and then I also want to add that when you're doing this just for Jess, or I said I was like, if it's coaching just for one person, I'll let you know. When you do a consult, if there is a parent involved, you want to have the parent and the kid involved when you're running the consult. And what you can do is for the transformation, you can be like student perspective and parent perspective. So you can be like, okay, parents, like, what are you seeing currently? It's like, and be like, kid, and like, and then have the kid voice up and be like, hey, like, I want to hear, are you feeling burnt out right now? Are you feeling like you need help managing your time? And the person that I sent you a suggestion for, that wasn't what I wanted. That's what she's been doing with hers as well. And it's been, I think, really, really helpful for like the kids to be involved and have like some sort of stake in the game. Now, another one of my clients, she coaches people who have had a life-changing like change in their vision, like people who have typically like lost eyes and things like that. Oh, and that's totally fine, Maria. But it's been tricky because she was working with really young kids, and I also did that with young kids, and it was like not super successful. But if you're doing it with older kids with like two invested parties, I would recommend having both of them if they're old enough on the call, and then also having both of them on the call and doing a check-in once a month with the family and just being like progress. And that's what I do. Like if I had like 3 people in college, and I'd just be like, hey, here are the updates for the month, like, but yeah.
I like that. I think too, like why I'm trying to think about all this is like I'm having trouble figuring out, I guess, how to even like get my program set up all the way, because obviously I have all these things in my brain that I know and that I know I would want to work on that fall under like each pillar. But like I just don't even know how to go about like planning what that 6 months looks like. Like, do you plan what the whole 6 months is gonna look like, or do you just plan like part of it? Like, I don't even know how to approach this, and it just feels so big and overwhelming.
Yeah. So most humans, when they come to coach, they literally, I've never had someone ever share a screen ever, other than me. It's like a weird thing I do, but I like it because it helps. Because I'm a very visual learner, and I also have ADHD, and so it helps me. But if you look at this onboarding video, I'll talk you through what I would say if you're just starting out is starting with 5 wins, what worked, what could use improvement, and what could do differently. Don't even need to share your screen and just be like, hey, okay, so whatever you click, whatever they say for what could use improvement, that's what you coach on. And it can be literally just like super broad, and you can just be like, okay, like, what's going on for you? Like, is everything okay? Like with your relationships, where did yours go? Like, how are things going with like stress right now? Like, and then when you also, then I like to have them list a breakthrough, something that like was
Mhm.
like a breakthrough in their mindset, a goal for the
Mhm.
next, like, it's like, so what's your goal, but by next week, like, what do you want to have accomplished? And then
Mhm.
going through the delivery things, just having like not just, it's huge. Having this each week, you're going to be able to see like, okay, you marked burnout as like lower than last week. Let's work on that next week. And be like, oh, okay. Like what happened is like she marked time management. It's like things were going up and then she went down. And I was like, okay, so next week we're going to do Monday hour 1. Okay. This week we're going to do this. Like, okay, you were feeling confident, more confident before. Let's talk about the pricing.
Mhm.
Let's talk about doubt. Like that's how and I would just be like, okay, next session, what do you want to work on? Be thinking about it. And that's all you need to do. And you don't even need to do that. Like most people, it's like they come on and they're like, for anyone else who has been coached by like another general coach, it's like, what do you want to coach on? And literally, I would every week with my general coach, I'd be like, oh my God, this happened. And I would just like have that ready, like always. Be like, this is going on and help. But like, I never was like at a
Mhm.
loss for like what I wanted to coach on.
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking like, so you're kind of saying it's like client informed, but if I'm selling that these are my pillars and like these are the 4 things that I'm going to teach you, do I just like wait for them to come up naturally and then like address those things?
Well, what they're gonna do,
Or
they're gonna talk about it on the console call. They're gonna talk about like where they are. And then you're
Mhm.
also going to talk about like, I'm going to teach you positive psych. I'm going to teach you undoing limiting beliefs. I'm going to teach you the deconstructed goal. I'm going to teach you the positivity plan. And so whatever they say on the console is their lowest area, that's the area I would start them with and be like, okay, just like what we were talking, and you'll be able to go back and watch this. But when you are going through a consult, you'll be like, okay, so the first week we're going to talk all about the long term or your work-life balance, because that's what you rank the lowest. So the first month we're going to talk about work-life balance. We might get through it in one session. It might take a full month. And then we got time there. And then we're going to talk about burnout next, because you rank that as number 2. Then we're going to talk about like your long-term plan. And then we're going to talk about time management. Now, Talia mentioned in the group, also if you've got a client or anything like that, I love you. And if you've like another minute, I know this is like your lunch break. So like,
yeah,
I will
no,
make
it's
this quick
fine.
and feel free to like message in the group. I was like, I've got you. But one of the things that Talia was saying is like, I would love to have a place to have all these ideas. And what I did when I was first starting, I was literally like, okay, what am I talking about a lot? Let me make a little document for it. And literally like my positivity, it's very advanced. It's like literally I'm just like, all right, okay, it is. I'm literally like on the next call I have, I'm gonna be like, okay, it's 5-2. What are your wins hey, it's so good to see you. What are your wins for the week? What worked? What could use improvement? What can we do differently? All right, great. Moving forward, let's talk about what could use improvement. And then I started creating like documents, like Friday Hour Done was a document. Anything that I give you, you can use, literally anything. And I can give you all of my original documents too. It just won't make sense. Like that's what my fear is. It's like, and then I'm like, okay, so what's your goal by next week? What do you want to do? And then I'll be like, okay, that's your goal. And when people talk about like money back guarantee or like, that's why I'm like, okay, you're choosing these. If you don't do these,
Mhm.
then I cannot guarantee, and we'll make it together. But it's like, if you don't do this, I can't, what are we doing here? And like, I had a person
Yeah.
and I went back and I highlighted all the things that they didn't do. And it was like, this for these,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry, I cannot give you your money back. And they were like,
Mhm.
all right, we're done. And I was like, all right, that's totally fine. But like for goals, like
Yeah.
I'll send you, I can send you this like goal achievement if you want, because I know that was one of yours. But I want you to think about
Yeah.
like if you were to teach it, like if you were to teach positive psych, what would you do? And I started with the blank plans and then I moved it to Google Drive if you want to later. So you can, I would just, if I were you, I would just have these, the weekly tracker, positivity breakthroughs, and this. I would just have these documents and then I would just be like, all right, take it
Okay.
from and see what else you want to think of.
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking about it from the lens of like, we were talking about networking and stuff like that. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to go to colleges or if I'm going to do webinars or if I'm going to talk to people, like, how do I pick what to present to them? Like, what to talk about, like,
I feel like I'm like
I
paying you
guess.
to say these words. I'm like, yes, we're literally talking about that 2 weeks from now. And you're going to have your 4 pillars, which you're going to talk about. Okay, so the pillars are like the overarching things. You're going to have
Mhm.
those. And then you'll have subtopics for webinars and then subcategories for posts. So you're going to be like,
Okay.
for him, he was like, okay, we're talking about stress. And then within stress, we're going to talk about visioning and calendaring. And within that, there's like a stress management. There's like a 3-step process that he could do as a post. So that's what's coming in 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
And you're gonna like be able to, if you want to start like just thinking about like, okay,
Mhm.
what are things that I would teach in here? Affirmations, journaling. Those are things that I could teach maybe in a post, maybe in a webinar. Maybe it's something I have to take them through and it'll take a month.
Mhm.
That's what you're going to be doing next.
Okay.
But how does
Cool.
that feel? It was like I was like, yep. I'm like, that's literally what we're going to do next week.
That I think I feel better, like not as worried about it because in my head, I just think I've been feeling like I have to have like a plan for like every week for 6 months for someone. So if it can be like client informed, then I think that takes a lot of the pressure off of me. I guess I'm just used to like thinking about it from the perspective of how I looked at it for 4 years when I was at College of Charleston, because it was like I definitely approached my job differently than some of the people I worked with. Like I tried my best to listen to my students and to make sure I was getting to the root of the problem, whereas the college had like guidelines that we had to follow every week, like things that we had to discuss and talk about. And so I think in my brain, that's what I'm thinking about is like all the forms that I filled out every week, all the paperwork that I did, like someone else's regime that I followed. You know what I mean?
And I think that school does that. And I think that's why, like, a lot of times, like, when we're starting a business and there are no rules, it's like, what do you mean? It's like, that's why, like, school is, like, very helpful. And, like, I try and set this up. It's like, okay, at least this is a starting ground, but literally, you can do whatever you want with clients in this business. If you're like, we're going to go on a walk today, and you just want to, like, we got to get outside, and I'm going to show you how to, like,
Mhm.
connect with nature again. It's like, that is free game. That's why like coaching being an unregulated industry, like I can teach you guys whatever I want. Whatever has worked for me, I
Mhm.
can teach. And it's like no one has like that's the beauty of it. Like
Yeah, I feel like that's great and terrifying at the same time.
it's certified. Well, you also just got certified as well. So it's like you got some stuff from there. You got some stuff from
Yeah.
start with what you have and what you know, and then build.
Okay.
And like
Okay.
we'll talk literally, I'm like, I feel like I paid you. But we'll talk about next week is we'll talk about like how to take those topics and we will talk about like how like you when you're doing your own ideas, you start with what you know and then you adapt that from I think it is module 4. No, module 3 or 2. Yeah. We'll talk about this is teaching. Yeah. So this is teaching concepts. So we'll talk about um like how to break it down and it'll be like, okay, you start with things that you've learned from other places and then you do variations of those things and then you do things that are completely your own. But this is where you start.
Okay. Well, I definitely feel a lot better from last night to now,
Good.
for sure.
And anyone else who's feeling like, wow, it's too much, just let me know. I got you. Does anybody else, Sarah or Talia, do you guys have anything that you want to add to Jess real quick? And then we're gonna rally and move forward to have an awesome day.
I just have one, I guess, piece of experience for you, Jess, that I like went from 6 months to 3 months for similar reasons. I sold 2 3-month packages and now I'm in 3 months and I'm like, shit, I'm gonna run out of time. So like, if your initial instinct was 6 months, stick with it and just like work on your thoughts, because I'm really regretting now having sold 3 months because I thought it was going to be easier, because I think it's going to be harder to actually deliver what I promised. And then I think that's it. Oh, and I will just reinforce, just let it be client led, because I'm finding now I've been coaching for like 1.5 years, and I'm sure Megan and Sarah can confirm this, that I just now feel ready to like have a more structured process for teaching, because I've seen this like patterns arise. I don't think I would have known like what order to teach things in if I hadn't just like let it be client driven for 1.5 years. So that's kind of been my process.
Well, thank you for the input.
Yeah, I can
I
definitely,
needed to hear that.
yeah. Like I've been at this for 8 years. For most of that time was a general life coach and session by session. And if I was finding that certain themes, I would build certain things out for that particular client as we went. But to this day, like I even got a message today from a client being like, my life is totally transformed and it's because of the teachings, and I didn't have a process. Right. So that's one thing. And I think one of the nuances though that I would bring to what Talia was suggesting that I found really helped me earlier on, because I felt more comfortable with 3-month packages, but I would just tell people up front on the consult, I would just take my time to kind of get a feel for where they're at. And I would prepare them for potentially renewing our contract. So I would just let them know, is like, based on where you are and what you're looking to create in your life, I'm seeing this as probably like a 6-month or 9-month but what we can do is we can begin the first cycle of 3 months together, and then as that comes to terms, we can get a feel for where you're at and what makes sense moving forward. How does that sound? And so because of that, I would have clients come to the end of their time having made the decision to renew themselves. So it was like super easy renewal conversations.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Sarah.
One of the things, like, this is also like a learning lesson for me, because the first round, I feel like a lot of people experienced what you did and got really overwhelmed. And what I found when I did programs, it helped me to do like multiple rounds. And that's what I've done with 200K. And now that I'm in my 3rd round, I'm like, oh, this is like, I've got it. 2nd round felt so much better. And I think that some people might not have resigned because I didn't prep them for it. But with you guys, I think I said that to everybody. I was like, this is like your first round of it. Like, take your time, and then you might want to do another round later. And then it was like, oh, okay, like I know it's going to be a fire hose at the beginning, and it might take me another round to like solidify. And if this is working, it's something I want to do. Huge, very, very important, Sarah. So thank you.
It's just really like to emphasize what you offered, Megan, is like, you want to like, it's a mix of changing the C and working on the T so that your offer feels like a no-brainer. And I like to create a container that like offers safety for my clients, where they're like, because especially if your people are not super familiar with coaching or that sort of thing, the nature of your offer, sometimes having a shorter container where you prepare them that it's possible or even probable that you'll be talking about going through another cycle, often just helps people put their concerns at ease. They're like, oh, this doesn't work, it's 3 months. Like, a little part of them is just wanting that reassurance, right? But all that goes to rest. Once they have momentum in your container, they're going to want to keep going.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Which I know this is like a lot of information, but I'm feeling whether you do 3 or 6 months, you're gonna crush it. I think we've given you a case for both and ways to deal with either of those. So like just like think about what you feel like would be an over deliver and an under promise, and that would create safety for them. I think that's huge. And Sarah, thank you so much for like touching on that. I also want to offer that like I didn't create this until I had seen the patterns arise enough for me to create like an actual program. So I kind of skipped like even when you have a group of people that you're working with, if you want that, what happens is you could even just do general coaching with a group and then wait for the things to arise. Like that's what my business coach Stacy did. She like literally like led like 6 rounds of 200K and was like, okay, this is like what needs to be there. And she charged 25K still, even she didn't even have any of this. And $2 million mastermind, that's 50K a year. And she didn't have this and she's run it like 7 times. And this is like literally the first round that she's ever had actual modules to work through. So like, just so you know, you don't need any of this in order to like actually make a solid program or to be a solid coach and offer something that people will absolutely pay for. So I'm very excited for you. I know you've got to get back to work. How are you feeling? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm vastly better. Like I said yesterday, I just feel like a little baby and everyone else has it all together. But I guess we're all in the same class for a reason.
Always. And it's like, I still like hit things. I'm like, oh, this is a new thing. And I'll let you guys know about everything that I'm doing to like make it easier. But you are in the perfect place. You're absolutely going to figure this out. You've got so many connections that we talked about yesterday. It's going to work. I know it will.
Well, thanks. I appreciate all of you and getting to experience all of you and learn from what you've learned. So I'm really grateful.
I'm so glad you're a part of this group, everybody. And I love you all so much. And I'll see you next Monday at 8 p.m. for our co-working and then Tuesday at 10 for our group call. Okay. Love you guys.
Thanks all.
Bye.